Part 4. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bha Xiaoye 11U. Chapter 32. The next day, after breakfast, a young couple was preparing to go home. Today is the day when Su Yaowen gets married, so he can't go back too late. The Su family also invited the Lu family, but Lu Shenke was busy going to Pingchuan County to purchase goods, and Wu and her 3 children did not go. He said that there was no rule in going back to his parents' home with his returning daughter-in-law, implying that the Su family had chosen a bad life. Su Qingyu didn't force it. It's not too much to have more of your family, and it's not too much to have less of your family. Fortunately, Father Lu gave the gift money. Lu Bachan hired a carriage, and the 2 of them walked to Kyoto village with a welcome greeting. Lu Bachan helped Su Qingyu get into the carriage and was very concerned about her on the way, fearing that he might have hurt her last night. Su Qingyu enjoyed his care with peace of mind and closed her eyes to rest. The young man who has just started pornography has amazing physical strength and a strong desire to explore. Su Qingyu gritted her teeth and endured it because she had her own purposes. Her modern aunt made an appointment with her uncle when she was young. The 2 of them lived on the rent of 5 or 6 apartments without ever having a serious job. When I was young, I enjoyed traveling around mountains and rivers. When he was older, his uncle took home a son. And immediately collapsed. After a long dispute, the 2 divorced. Now my aunt lives alone in a big house, and she always feels lonely during holidays. Whenever I see a child when I go out, I will stare at it and regret not having a child when I was young. And one of Su Qingyu's best friends was very ambitious when she was young and had aborted 2 or 3 children. Now she wants to have children, but she can no longer conceive. Even though I took traditional Chinese medicine and tried in vitro fertilization, I still couldn't get pregnant. Eventually the marriage was divorced. The ex-husband married another woman and had children. Her mentality also collapsed, and she always made mistakes at work. If nothing happened, I would call Su Qingyu over and hold her while she cried. Su Qingyu was a little scared, she was afraid of marriage. She gradually lost her sense of security towards men. But she was afraid of being alone and wanted to have a child. Su Qingyu was thinking about the past in confusion, and fell asleep on the swaying carriage. He opened his eyes and took a steady look at Lu Bachan. Lu Bachan noticed her gaze and looked over. What's wrong? Su Qingyu shook her head, looked at him for a while, and said, we signed an agreement, do you remember? Lu Bachan did not expect that Su Qingyu would suddenly bring up this topic to him on the day he returned home. Somewhat at a loss. After thinking for a while, he nodded. I remember. I remember everything you said. I have told you a lot before, I don't know if you remember. If I am lucky enough to survive, I will come back to you, whether I have children or not, I will have a good life with you. Su Qingyu looked at him and saw his dark eyes. Then he closed his eyes again. You don't believe it? Lu Bachan asked loudly. Su Qingyu said nothing. You don't think you kicked me away because you got pregnant 2 nights ago, do you? Lu Bachan shook her anxiously. Gritting his teeth. What does this woman think of me? Tools that provide seeds? Angry. If Su Qingyu knew what he was thinking, he would definitely nod, yes, he would treat you as a tool. Su Qingyu waved away Lu Bachan's hand and continued to rest with her eyes closed. You just got married, how can you see a person's true heart? Isn't it common in this humming ancient world to have 3 wives and 4 concubines? As long as you have money and power, no one cares how many women you have in your backyard. Others feel envious, which shows that it is a symbol of status. At least you have the money to support it. Regardless of ancient or modern times, whenever a woman is weak, she will be suppressed. Nothing is as reliable as money. Before Lu Bachan could wait for Su Qingyu's response, he angrily turned around and closed his eyes to rest. He worked hard all night last night, and this woman treated him like this. Humph, so angry. However, Lu Bachan finally understood why so many people always wanted to run to the flower house. He used to never understand how those men's eyes would light up when they saw a woman, and he thought they were crazy. Now that I have tasted it myself, no wonder women and children are hot on the bed. I opened my eyes and glanced at the woman next to me. Although she was still very dark, she was not white or fat, and she had no flesh on her body. But, hey, it's not bad. She has a tough personality and should be a woman who can keep a home. Gritting her teeth again, the stinky woman didn't even believe him. He had sworn in front of his mother that he would never change his mind like his father. Smelly woman. You will know later. It seems that he still has to find a way to survive. Only by surviving can he make the stinky woman believe that he is not a man who is quick and easy. The couple thought about their own things, and the carriage swayed for more than an hour and finally arrived at Kyoto village. Kyoto village was particularly lively today, with 3 families holding wedding banquets at the same time. This year almost half of the families in the village have been drafted into the army. These days, there is a lot of emphasis on inheritance, and those with money or not will marry their children in order to leave a legacy for them. Although families with daughters who have good conditions at home avoid it, there are always families with worse conditions who are willing to marry their daughters over. When Sukingyu and his wife arrived at Su's house, they saw that the house was very lively, with tables and chairs set up inside and outside, and red characters posted on the table. The banquet hadn't started yet, and no one was sitting on the chairs, but there were already many children running around the table, making it lively and joyful. Sister, the twins saw her with sharp eyes and ran towards Sukingyu. Hey! Run slower! Sukingyu opened her hands to face them. Sister, I miss you so much. I miss you too. Sister, I miss you too. Are you good? Yes. The 3 siblings were intimate for a while. When the 2 little ones saw Lu Bachan standing next to their sister with a smile, they blinked their eyes, looked at Sukingyu, and called Lu Bachan softly, brother-in-law. Hey! Lu Bachan responded with a loud voice. Are you afraid that people won't hear you? There's nothing exciting about smiling like that. The first time Lu Bachan was called brother-in-law, the feeling was particularly different. Excitedly, I opened a gift bag on the spot, took out a large handful of candies and stuffed them into the arms of the 2 little ones. Seeing a bunch of children surrounding them, I also distributed them to them one by one. A bunch of children were so happy that they thanked her sweetly. Thank you, brother-in-law. No thank you, no thank you, he grinned from ear to ear. Sukingneo didn't look at it and went in to look for her parents. When she entered, she found that her parents were so busy that they only had time to say hello to her and then left. Sukingneo greeted everyone in the family and looked around for a week. She found that her eldest aunt and her second aunt's family had not arrived yet, and her eldest sister and Yaya were not there either. She asked her mother, Mom, my sister doesn't live at home? No, let her stay here until today. Mother Su kept moving and sighed, your sister would like to stay, but she is afraid that the family will say she is lazy. She took Yaya back just after you went out. She said she would come back today. Sukingyu sighed. Once you get married, you can't help yourself. If you want to relax with your parents' house for a few days, you have to look at the face of your husband's family. She is traveling back and forth with a daughter who is over 1 year old. With her sister's temperament, she may not be willing to take the car. I had to get up so early to hold Yaya and run so far. Alas, you still have to make money. Only by making a lot of money can you feel confident. Sukingneo put away her things and prepared to help her mother. When her cousin Suchunlin saw her coming back, she came over to talk to her. Suchunlin is Suerhe's eldest daughter and Su Yowen's biological sister. She is 1 year older than Sukingliu, but married a year later than her. She is not pregnant yet. It was for this reason that her man did not go to the army, but her second uncle did. The two exchanged pleasantries. Su Qingyu also saw her man and said hello. Her husband is the youngest son in the family. His family background is pretty good and he is much better off than Su Qingliu. The eldest and second uncles in the family have both gone to the army. The youngest son is loved and loved by the family. Su Chunlin is living a good life. After chatting for a few words, Su Yawen was about to set off to pick up the bride, and the two of them went to help together. Today, the Su family has dozens of tables. The Su family's family background is average, with a large population and many half-year-old children. The family does not have much surplus food. The income they earn in almost a year is only enough to feed the family for a year. This time, Su Yawen got married with Su Qingyu's dowry. Get married. But the grandchild in the family was the first to get married, so Lao Sutu was willing to pay the bills. Not only did he hold dozens of tables, but he also treated Su Yawen very decently. We also complied with the other party's request and hired a wedding car from the town. It was pulled by a big horse dressed in red and colorful. It was particularly festive. In order to catch up with the auspicious time, the team to pick up the bride set off quickly. Only then did Su's mother have some free time, and she and Su's father took Su Qingyu and Lu Bachan to the main room to talk. Today is also the day for Su Qingneo to return home. It is a good day for Qingneo. Just now, the Su family also had a round of teasing around Lu Bachan, making him blush. Father Su and Mother Su looked at Lu Bachan and were very satisfied with his conduct. I felt happy and smiled on my face. Lu Bachan breathed a sigh of relief, fearing that his father-in-law and mother-in-law would be dissatisfied with him and show their displeasure. The family had only talked for a while, and Su Yawu, who had accompanied him to pick up the bride, ran back panting and said something had happened. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bh Yaoye 11U. Chapter 33. Chapter 33 Adding Money. Su Qingneo was talking to Su Qingliu and playing with Yaya. Sister, why don't you stay at home and have to get up early to come here today? Su Qingliu sighed, Qingyu, you are also married. You must know that your husband's family is different from your natal family. Although you have to work in your natal family, and although it is also tiring, you don't have to be careful about who looks at each other. Even if I get married, I don't need to look at anyone's face. Su Qingliu smiled bitterly after hearing this, thinking she was naive. You just got married and you don't understand yet. How can you stay the same as your parents' family when you get married? Su Qingyu said nothing. As long as everyone treats each other as equals, she doesn't need to look at anyone's face. While he was talking, Su Yawu came in like a gust of wind, breathing heavily. Mom and Dad, something happened, and my sister-in-law can't come back. Ah! The whole family gathered around. What do you mean by not being able to come back? Su Yawu drank 2 large bowls of water before explaining the matter clearly. It turned out that it was Su Yawen's mother-in-law who asked for money to get into the sedan chair. She came to the house a few days ago to make a fuss, saying that Su Qing's bride price was 50 taels, and her daughter only got 10 taels. It's the same as marrying a daughter, so there's no reason why it should be so different. At that time, Su Qingyu's step-grandmother had a big argument with her, but in the end it was Lao Sutu who persuaded the family to leave by giving them an extra 5 taels of silver. I originally thought that this matter would be over, but I didn't expect that something would happen again before I left home. I had to give another 20 taels of silver before boarding the sedan before I could take him away. Su Yawen and others went to pick up the bride. Where did they bring the money with them? Even if you bring it, who from a poor farm family will bring 20 taels? The family cannot save more than 3 or 5 taels a year. Isn't this a stalemate? The Su family wanted to pick someone up, but the Lu family refused to let them go. As soon as Su Yawu finished speaking, Mrs. Wang jumped up, fart. She wants 20 taels. Her daughter is a rich lady, She wants 20 taels. Before, we had to give out wedding clothes and rent a carriage in the town. They all agreed, and now the lion is opening his mouth again. It's easy to judge us as soft persimmons, right? Feng was also very unhappy. After many choices, the Lu family was chosen. The matchmaker said that although her family was poor, she was quick and diligent. She had helped take care of several children since she was a child, and she was a good hand at home and outside. She also went to investigate and found that everyone in the village praised her when they talked about her, so she was chosen. I didn't expect her mother to be a troublemaker. This opinion was raised, and that opinion was raised again. Now I have to pay another 20 taels to pick someone up. Mrs. Feng suddenly felt unhappy with Lu Kaya of the Lu family. Suerhe's temper was immediately aroused. If you don't accept it, I won't accept it. Where can my son find a relative? He is not bad looking, so he has to find her Lu family to be his in-laws. But his Lu family is making trouble. After this incident, it's still unclear whether she can marry Lu Kaya in the future. She still has several unmarried daughters. I wonder who would dare to come to propose marriage. No one answered. Old Sutu was silent for a while and then said, "Why are you angry with them now? Your son is leaving soon. How can you find a suitable family in the past few days? You can't even run away to marry me." Feng was anxious when she heard this. She was the one who found the matchmaker, and she knew the ropes best. Where can I find a suitable match in just these few days? Now we still have to find a way to bring the person back. Even if she takes him back and divorces him, her son will still look good. When the Lu family was in the first year of junior high school, she was in the 15th year, so they could see how his daughter lived under her eyes. After thinking about it, he said, "Father, Mother, we still have to find a way to bring the person back." Mrs. Wang interrupted her when she heard this. "How to pick her up? Didn't you hear what Wu said that Liu's bitch asked for 20 taels to pick her up? Does the 20 taels come from your second wife or from your Feng family?" Feng's family members were also gathered around. They jumped up after hearing Wang's words. "Why does my family pay for it? It's not my family who wants to marry me." Old Su jumped up when he saw his in-laws, glared at the Wang family, and hurriedly comforted the Feng family with a few words. Su Chunlin looked at her parents' anxious and angry expressions and suggested, "Mom, how about we pool some money together?" Her husband heard this and nodded in agreement. "Yeah, Chunlin and I will take 1 or 2. Su Qingyu glanced at him and said nothing. When Lu Bachan heard that his brother-in-law had spoken, as the new son-in-law, it was hard for him not to express his position, so he opened his mouth and said, "Then Qing Lao and I will also take a tael." Su Qingyu turned to look at him, said nothing, and then looked at her grandparents. Wang was obviously dissatisfied. Old Sutu was somewhat pleased and said a few words of thanks to his 2 grandsons-in-law. Su's mother frowned and glanced at Su's father, but she didn't speak. Su Chunlin looked around and found that except for the 2 grandsons-in-law who expressed their opinions, no one else spoke, and her second aunt didn't speak either, so she couldn't help but feel a little anxious. Just as she was about to speak, Su Qingnao stopped her. "Sister Chunlin, I'm afraid our family doesn't have much money. If we did, we would have to buy an outfit for cousin Yawen and give him some more to carry with him. Besides, if she agrees to the Lu family today, what will happen if she speaks again in the future? If my cousin does something good in the future, all our hard-earned money will go to the Lu family." Everyone present heard this and felt it made sense. Just like the Lu family, we must not encourage his momentum. If you satisfy her today and ask for it again tomorrow, should you give it to her or not? 15 taels is already a lot to get married in the countryside. The husband's family is required to prepare wedding clothes, drums and music are required, a car is arranged, and now it costs extra money to go out. Where is this? If the Su family starts this thing, if the young man from Kyoto village gets married in the future, the woman will have to add money before going out. Should she give it or not? We cannot encourage this momentum. Ms. Wang was so anxious that she kissed her eldest grandson to get married. She held the most banquets in the village on the same day. Seeing that other families had brought back brides, her family had to pay more. Gritting her teeth with hatred, Ms. Lu, I knew she was a hole that couldn't be filled. She was so mean, she actually sold her own daughter for money. I didn't even think about what she would do with her daughter in her husband's family after she made such a fuss. Live your life. Ms. Wang was cursing, and all the guests were watching and listening to her cursing. In the end, Lao Suta couldn't stand listening anymore and interrupted her. What's the use of talking about this now? We'd better think about how to bring people back. Whatever you want to accept, don't accept it. If you can't get a wife, I will go to Renyaza tomorrow to buy one for Yowen to bring back to the bridal chamber. They are all women, and only the daughter of her Lu family can give birth to a son. Don't accept it? Send someone to let Yowen get married. When Wen comes back, she will ask for the 15 taels of bride price, and the money for wedding clothes, bride price, and rental of the wedding car will also have to be accounted for by her family. With this money, I can buy 2 women for you Wen, and there will always be one who can. Leave it to him. As soon as Wang finished speaking, Feng's eyes lit up. He echoed, Mom is right, we want the money back, and tomorrow we will go to Renyaza to buy 2 women for Yowen. One of them will be able to give birth to a son for Yowen. The more he talked, the more he felt it made sense. Feng's eyes were astonishingly bright, and he looked away from the anxious and angry look just now. He was already thinking about the feasibility of this proposal. King Nao was stunned by what the mother-in-law and daughter-in-law said. Can it still be like this? Lu Bachan also looked dumbfounded. He didn't expect such an operation. The onlookers who came to drink the wedding banquet were all relatives of the Su family, and naturally they were all on the side of the Su family. Regarding the Lu family's shameless operation, they also believed that they should not give money or encourage the Lu family's arrogance, and expressed support for Wang and Feng's proposal to buy people. Just when Su Youwu and 2 young men from relatives were about to run to inform the wedding team of the decision, someone shouted at the door, "Who do you think that is?" You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bhyaoya 11U. Chapter 34. Everyone in the courtyard looked outside. I saw a woman in a red wedding dress, carrying a small bundle, trotting towards the Su family. Lucaya. Ah. What? Lucaya? The Su family all crowded to the door. After taking a closer look, it turned out to be Lucaya. Why did you come here by yourself? Lucaya was out of breath from running and her hair was scattered. When she saw a large number of people surrounding her, she was a little scared. She buried her head and held the strap of her baggage, feeling a little at a loss. Why did you come here by yourself? Wang squeezed over and asked. Seeing her face turning red, Su Qingyu said, let her come in first and let her have a drink of water to calm down. Then someone will notify the pickup team. That's right, Youwu, go and tell your brother that he's coming from home. He looked confused at first, then quickly raised his hand to greet Su Youwu. Su Youwu was also confused. He stared blankly at the bride who was running towards her in a wedding dress, with her mouth wide open without moving. After being slapped on the back by Su he realized what he was doing and ran with 2 boys from relatives to report the news. My mother hid me in the mountains and asked my brother to guard me. She said yes, she said she would let me come down after you gave me money. I didn't agree. Later, my sister and my brother-in-law lured my brother away, and I ran over. As Lucaya passed by while talking, she didn't dare to raise her head and nervously pulled the corners of her clothes in circles with her hands. Everyone sighed after hearing this. This woman from the Lu family only has money in her eyes. I'm afraid she has never thought about her daughter's future life in her husband's family, right? Anyone with a bit of temper would probably frustrate her daughter by thinking of the humiliation she received during today's wedding. Tisk tisk. I'm afraid this Lucaya wasn't picked up. The people watching and listening to the truth were dumbfounded by this operation. I have never seen anyone so desperate for money. What an insightful experience. Lu Bachan sighed in Suking Nao's ear, she is more ruthless than my stepmother, and she doesn't even care about her face. Sukingya rolled her eyes at him. Seeing Lucaya standing there with a confused look on her face, her hands shaking nervously, she glanced at Xiaohe and Qiuju and said, "You two, help my sister-in-law to your room and sit down until Brother Wen comes back. Then help her out to worship and talk to my sister-in-law in the house." When Xiaohe and Qiuju heard this, they recovered from their daze, glanced at several elders, and then went to help Lucaya. After the three people left the main room, everyone in the room started talking to each other. Second Aunt Su reacted even more strongly, saying that she had never seen an in-law like this before, and she was obsessed with money. She also specifically told Ms. Feng that she should watch out for Lucaya in the future and not let her move all her belongings to her parents' house. She dares, Wang jumped up, bulging her eyes, looking in Lucaya's direction, filled with displeasure. He was already thinking of all the ways to frustrate her. Sukingya shook her head when she saw this, worried about Lucaya's future life. 6. Sukingya appreciated her actions today. From the look on her face, it seemed that she had to do a lot of work at her parents' house, and her mother just wanted to sell her for money, which would not be good to her. If I go to my husband's house in a better place, I might be able to find a different way of living. You can marry anyone. Su Yawen looks pretty good and has a good reputation. There are no reports of the Su family abusing anyone. Although life is not that good, it is quieter than the Lu family. If you can run here by yourself, you must be someone who knows what's going on. He has a tough personality. If Su Yawen has a good life in the future, he should be a person who can protect his family. As long as she doesn't become a monster herself, she will be a breadwinner for the Su family in the future. After a while, the wedding reception team came back. Everyone squeezed out to take a look and found that no one from the Lu family came back. They all breathed a sigh of relief. Why didn't that family come back? Su Chunlin asked. Su Yawa grinned happily. I told my brother quietly that the family just thought that we couldn't afford the money and wouldn't accept the marriage, so they just watched us leave. They also shouted that if we look back, we will be more than 20 years old too. But, whoever wants to give 20 taels, we won't give it. When Mrs. Wang heard this, she patted her thigh. Quick, go to the church. I'm afraid that the Lu family will realize that someone has run away soon. When everyone heard it, they felt that it made sense. He hurriedly helped Su Yawen and dragged him to the main room to prepare for worship. Lucaya was also helped out by the two sisters-in-law, and the nervousness and confusion on her face disappeared. Su Yawen smiled at her, and she lowered her head again. Before she could see her expression clearly, Su Chunlin found a piece of red cloth to cover her head. A newlywed couple was helped to worship. Soon the ceremony was completed. The invited chef shouted loudly, "Let's have dinner." The woman who was helping brought a bamboo dustpan and prepared to serve the dishes. The onlookers had expressions of emotion on their faces, and they all found tables to sit down and prepare to eat. Before the food was served, the Lu family reacted and came to the door. Lucaya's mother-in-law and her brothers and sisters-in-law were very angry. Seeing that Lucaya was indeed there, he had bowed down and slapped his thighs, scolding the Su family for being treacherous. I was surrounded by Mrs. Wang and several women from relatives and scolded me. Mrs. Lu was not willing to be outdone. She didn't look like a happy mother-in-law as her daughter was getting married today, so she scolded Mrs. Wang and others with her hands in her waist. They went back and forth saying that the gift money her daughter asked for was less, which family nearby gave them more, and also gave them fields. What the hell? Su Qingyu was brought out again by Mrs. Lu, who said that she had received 50 taels of bride price, and her daughter was not bad at all, so she should not be given only 15 taels. But as soon as she said these words, she was criticized by several women from her relatives, saying that in their village, whoever had only 5 taels was given more by the neighborhood, so don't be so shameless as to sell your daughter for money. This saves the next few daughters from being able to get married. Lu Bachan may have never seen a country woman quarreling. He saw both parties pulling their hair and tampering with each other. His eyes were shining and he was watching with gusto. While watching, he whispered to Su Qingyu, "I didn't expect that my family would pay 50 taels, that's a lot." Su Qingyu rolled her eyes at him, "My family only has more than 10 acres of land, and the whole family lives on. There is no shop. My cousin gave him 15 taels. Your family has more than 100 acres of land and there are shops in the town Zazu, your stepmother and sister are wearing gold and silver. Do you think 50 taels is too much? Do you want me to give it back to you and let's break up?" When Lu Bachan heard this, he waved his hands anxiously, "I just said it casually. I didn't mean that, I mean, why only 50 taels? My stepmother and Lu Bozu have already gone to the county to look for her, so could the bride price be lower? If I had known better, I would have asked Lu Shenke to pay more, and the money would have gone into the pockets of Wu and those guys." Su Qingnao listened to his excuses and ignored him. Continue to listen to Xiao Qingyang talking about how he was blocked by the Lu family when picking up his bride. Xiao Qingyang and several brothers followed him to pick up the bride, and met lonely. The other party's actions shattered the little thing's outlook on life. "Sister, you don't know how bad the Lu family is. They didn't let us in, and they didn't even give us water to drink. They even took away the candies and snacks we brought to Salu." Xiao Qingyang looked unhappy. Xiao Qingxin nodded in agreement, "Yes, the Lu family is good or bad, and this sister-in-law is also from the Lu family." Su Qingyu smiled and touched her head, "The fact that this sister-in-law came here on her own means that she wants to live a good life with her cousin. You can see carefully whether she is a good person or not. Don't have any objections to her just because her surname is Lu." Xiao Qingyang hummed and nodded, "That's right. There are also bad people in good people's families, and there are also good people in bad people's families." The two siblings looked at each other and nodded. Su Qingyu and Su Chunliu both laughed. Lu Bachan also sat at the same table with them. Seeing the cute looks of the two little ones, he teased them, "Is that brother-in-law a good person or a bad person?" "Madam, she has a tender heart." Author, Bha Jiaoye 11U. Chapter 35. When Su Qingyu heard this, she glanced sideways at him. This guy is so thick-skinned to ask a child this question in front of him. Su Qingliu glanced at him and her eyes darkened. Thinking of Yaya's father whose life or death is unknown, he feels depressed. He stroked Yaya's back in his arms and fell silent. The twins looked at each other and looked at Lu Bachan intently. They all said in unison, "If you are good to my sister, you are a good person, if you are not good to my sister, you are a bad person." Lu Bachan was stunned for a moment, then laughed, "Then I must be a good person." "Huh, I don't know yet." Xiao Qingxing wrinkled her nose and snorted at him. The cubs Lu Bachan had with Wu at home all had noses that were not noses, and eyes that were not eyes. They had never been intimate with his brothers and sisters. I was very envious when I saw Su Qingyu and her younger siblings being affectionate. Seeing that the twins were sensible and cute, he picked up Xiao Qingxing and held her in his arms, teasing her. Xiao Qingxing was a little awkward at first, but slowly relaxed her body and leaned into Lu Bachan's arms. In the Su family, even Su's father and Su Qingsong did not show such affection to the two little things. The whole family is not very good at expressing emotions. Seeing Lu Bachan's exposed emotional expression at this time, Xiao Qingzing's emotional balance immediately tilted towards him. My good impression of him immediately rose to several levels. On the other side, the Lu family saw that the uncooked rice was already cooked, and their daughter did not cooperate, so they all came to worship on their own. The marriage was complete, and it was even more impossible for the Su family to pay for it. Angrily, I found a table with fewer people, and after squeezing the people away, the family sat on it and started eating. The guests all looked down upon the Lu family's behavior. Seeing that the Su family didn't speak, they just kept their mouths shut and pointed at the Lu family while eating. Xiao Qingyang said to her two sisters while eating, "Sister, you don't know that the Lu family is not happy at all when their daughter marries, and there is no banquet at home." "Ah, isn't there a table set?" Su Qingliu was shocked. "No matter how poor your daughter is, she will set up a table or two when she goes out." Xiao Qingyang shook his head, "No, it didn't even have the word on it." So stingy. Xiao Qingxing wrinkled her nose to express her dissatisfaction. Lu Bachan touched her head and agreed, "Well, you are so stingy." Seeing that her words were echoed, Xiao Qingxing looked at Lu Bachan and raised the corners of her mouth. His favorability towards Lu Bachan skyrocketed. Su Qingyu shook her head while eating. It seemed that Lu Kaya was having a hard time at her parents' house. I wonder if Mrs. Wang and her second aunt will treat her well due to such a commotion in her natal family today. Wang is not easy to talk to. I can hold a grudge in my heart. Fortunately, Lu Kaya came in time today, and she didn't miss the right time, otherwise she wouldn't know what the Wang family was up to. After eating until many people got up, the Lu family left the table. When he left, he ran to Mrs. Wang and asked her to take a rice bowl with meat and vegetables to take back, saying that no one in the family could eat it. Su Qingnao saw her step-grandmother gloating over her luck, and was about to go crazy. She was worried that the two of them would start humming again, but fortunately, Su Ergu and others restrained her in time. All the people here today are relatives, and it would be really awkward to quarrel with each other over a table of food. Besides, the bride has come here on her own, and if the Lu family doesn't let the Lu family get angry like this, what if trouble breaks out again later and she makes any excessive demands? In the end, the Lu family ate and took away the food. The farce is over. Xiao Qingxing and others who were sent to the new house to deliver meals came out and said that the new sister-in-law was crying. Su Qingnao and Su Qingliu looked at each other and sighed together. The two sisters met a father and mother who loved their children, so they were reborn in the right way. By Shenqi, all the guests had left, as had Su's second aunt, Su Chunlin, and her family. The two sisters helped the family clear away the tables, chairs, dishes, and chopsticks. Su Qingnao looked at the sun that was about to set, and thought that Su Qingliu would marry far away, so she took her to say goodbye. Su's father and Su's mother held the two sisters very reluctantly. The twins clung to the legs of their two sisters without saying a word, pouting and feeling disappointed. Su Qingyu comforted the two little ones, "After this period of work is over, I will pick you up to play in the town." "Really?" The two little things' eyes shone. "Really? How about you go back with your brother-in-law now?" Lu Bachan asked bewilderedly. The two little things were eager to try and looked at Father Su and Mother Su. "No, your brother-in-law will be leaving in a few days. You guys are just going to cause trouble for your sister and brother-in-law." Su's father disagreed and shouted with a straight face. The two little things immediately wilted and lowered their heads. Lu Bachan pulled them aside to comfort them. He didn't know what he said, but the two little guys had smiles on their faces again. Su Qingyu glanced at his face and felt moved in her heart. After a while, the two sisters left with the return gifts from Father Su and Mother Su. Yaya had become familiar with Su Mu and others, and when she left, she waved goodbye. Lu Bachan was so curious that he hugged her all the way without letting go. Su Qingnao drove Su Qingliu to the entrance of their village in a carriage, and she refused to let Su Qingnao send her in. Su Qingnao had no choice but to forget it and watched her leave with Yaya in one hand and a rather heavy basket in the other. Lu Bachan also watched her leave. Seeing the confused expression on Su Qingyu's face, I felt a little touched in my heart. Thinking that in the future when he left, Su Qingnao would be like her sister, waiting at home for her husband who had no news, day after day. He didn't know whether the other party was alive or dead, and he was guarding the child alone. Looking at the faces of his in-laws, he didn't even dare to invite him into the house even when his family members were seeing him off. If he died in the future, it would be difficult for Su Qingyu to remarry like her sister with a young child, right? He had thought of this at the beginning and didn't want to consummate the marriage with her. But she insisted. In the future, his children will call other people daddy, be criticized by others, be beaten and scolded by others, and will be disliked by others even if they eat more than one mouthful of rice. When they get to the dinner table, they must carefully look at each other's faces before they dare to serve the bowl. Lu Bachan shivered intelligently when he thought of this. No, absolutely not. How could he, Lu Bachan's child, look at other people's faces? He kept a straight face and said nothing the whole time. As soon as the car entered the town, Lu Bachan jumped out of the car like a carp. Without looking back, he just said, "I won't be back for dinner at night," and ran away. In a blink of an eye, no one was there. "Where are you going?" Su Qingyu shouted, but there was no response. I rolled my eyes and had to let him go. After arriving home, it was time to have dinner after a while, cooked by Aunt Jo. It tastes pretty good. Father Lu went to Pingchuan County to purchase goods, but he was not there. Mrs. Wu asked a few questions about her natal family, and Su Qingyu also picked up a few nice words to say. A few people had dinner indifferently and then left the table. Su Qingnao and Aunt Jo cleared the dining table before returning to the room. After washing up, I remembered the military strategy I had talked about with Lu Bachan, and wondered how to deal with it. I wanted to read a copy, but found that there was no pen and ink in the room. He was so angry that he complained about the guy. Even if this guy is a scumbag at reading, how come he doesn't even have any pen and ink? Have you thrown away all the books you have read before? When Lu Bachan finally returned to his room, he saw Su Qingyu looking at him with a look of hatred. "Madam, she has a tender heart." Author, Bh Yaoye 11U. Chapter 36. Lu Bachan's eyes met Su Qingyu's eyes, and she trembled when she stared at him intently. I hurriedly sniffed my body. Bah, he didn't go to drink or go to the flower house, so what's the taste? As for something like that. Without looking at her, he ran to the bamboo couch and leaned on it. "Wu didn't act like a monster during dinner today, did he?" he asked, lying down comfortably and resting his head on his hands. Su Qingyu didn't answer and looked at him. Lu Bachan touched his nose and cursed. What did she want to hear? What did she want to ask? "I went to the Yangui Martial Arts Hall to have dinner with my master and brothers. Women just like to ask questions and inquire about men's whereabouts, for fear that men will run away to meet women." Tisk, that's true. Like Mr. Wu, every time his father came back he would ask endless questions about his whereabouts and details. Tisk tisk, woman. Lu Bachan cursed, and after finishing speaking, he was puzzled when he saw that Su Qingyu still didn't speak. "I confessed it, and it's true, and I didn't hide it. Are you still not satisfied?" Just as he started to speak, he was interrupted by Su Qingyu. "Why don't you have a piece of paper or ink in your room?" "Where are the books you read before?" Su Qingyu said calmly. When Lu Bachan heard this, he breathed a sigh of relief. Just to put it bluntly, how could his woman be like the Wu family and other common people who would catch a man and ask questions, which is annoying. "Oh, those, I put them away." I got angry when I looked at them, and I remembered that my father told me that I wasn't as good at studying as Lu Bozu, that bastard, and asked me to learn more from him. 6. Learn from him, learn from his yin and yang weirdness. If I'm bored and want to read, so I'll look for it. Lu Juyu's family is a scholar and he has some books at home. If you want to read them, I'll borrow them for you. Su Qingyu rolled her eyes after hearing this. After another pause, she found that she rolled her eyes more often when meeting this guy. He said calmly, "Find me some pen, ink, and paper tomorrow." "What?" Lu Bachan asked, twisting his body. "What do you care about me? You ask so many questions. Don't you want a military book?" Lu Bachan suddenly jumped up and ran towards her in a few steps. His big face came close to her. "You got it back. Show me quickly." Su Qingyu pushed his face away in disgust. "No, my family threw the stove into the fire before." "What? How could it cause a fire? Your family is really. Cut the nonsense. Do you want it?" "Yes, but you said it's already on fire." "I'll give it to you silently." "Ah. Can you say it silently? All of it?" Not a single word. Lu Bachan was surprised and stared at Su Qingyu, trying to figure out the truth or falsehood of her words. "Do you want love? You want it? I'll get it for you now." "How late it is?" "It's okay, I'll get it from Lu Bo's ancestral house." "It'll be quick," he said as he ran away. This guy, it's true, the wind is like rain. After a while, Lu Bachan came in like the wind again, carrying a large bundle of paper and an inkstone and pen. There are several pens, with different nibs and peak lengths, and they are available in large, medium, and small sizes. "Are you afraid that you have looted all the 4 treasures of the study from Lu Bo's ancestral home?" Lu Bachan raised his head and said, "My father bought it with money, and it's not his." "This is gangster logic," he said as he went over to check and select a brush. "I chose a pen with a small tip, laid out the paper, and was about to grind the ink when the guy grabbed it and said, 'I'll do it. I'll do it. Just think about the content, don't be distracted, and you'll miss it. If you miss it, it's ridiculous thousands of miles. You still know that there are thousands of miles of mistakes?' Tisk tisk. Tisk, it sounds like I am illiterate. I was also very talented in reading when I was a child." "Yes, you are very talented. You can entertain cats and dogs, drink in flower houses, invite people to fight, and the children on the street will hide when they see you. You. How can I be like that? It's all rumors spread by others. I have already said that I just drink sake and don't do anything. Besides fighting, if others don't provoke me, how can I hit them? Where can I not fight? Can I be favored by my master? If not, how can I go to a martial arts school to learn my skills? Yes, you are reasonable and you have the ability." The 2 people were joking and began to write a military book. One was writing and the other was polishing the ink. There was an unusual harmony in the room. It wasn't until the cicadas chirped and the birds chirped and the summer morning dawned that Su Qingyu finally finished the 6,000-word The Art of War, a total of 13 chapters. "My hands are almost broken." Lu Bachan rubbed her wrist and used a hot towel to apply heat to her. Although his hands and feet were diligent, his mind was not on it. His eyes were astonishingly bright, staring at the papers spread out on the table, as if staring at a treasure that glowed with colorful golden light. Su Qingyu felt sleepy at this moment, pushed him away and walked to the bed. "Read it for yourself first." "I'm going to sleep first. If you don't understand, you can tell me when I wake up." Lu Bachan nodded repeatedly, and diligently went over to help her lift the curtain and spread out the quilt. You sleep, I will see for myself. If I don't understand, I will go to the master to study it." Su Qingyu reacted and held him back. "See for yourself, I'm afraid this is not good enough to be seen in this world. Lu Bachan was stunned for a moment, then he figured it out and nodded repeatedly, okay, I'll watch it myself. I'm not going anywhere. I'll just watch it in the house. Su Qingyu glanced at him sleepily, you're not sleeping. Lu Bachan shook his head, I'm not sleepy, you can sleep. He also covered her with a quilt. Su Qingyu glanced at him and saw that he was in high spirits and there was no trace of fatigue or sleepiness in his eyes, so she had to let him go and fell asleep with his head tilted. When she woke up hungry, she found the man sitting at the table, looking like he was in trance. You didn't sleep? Are you awake? Lu Bachan turned to look at her. Run over and lift the curtain. Su Qingyu looked at his eyes, which were full of blood, and said, I'm hungry. Go see if Aunt Jo has left any food for us and bring it to the room to eat. Only then did Lu Bachan realize that he had not eaten breakfast or lunch. Su Qingyu said that he was also very hungry and rushed out of the house. I'll get it. After a while, as soon as Su Qingyu finished washing, Lu Bachan ran back carrying 2 food boxes. I didn't even notice it unless you told me, but now I realize that I'm so hungry that my chest is touching my back. As he said that, he put out the rice in the food box and called Su Qingyu over to eat. The guy didn't know whether he was hungry or something, but he was picking up the rice very quickly, as if he was about to be robbed. Su Qingyu couldn't see it and patted the back of his hand, you are rushing to reincarnate, eating so fast. It affects my mood when dining. Lu Bachan paused and said, Master said that you must eat quickly on the battlefield, otherwise the war drums may sound before you finish eating. I don't want to be a starving ghost. Besides, you eat quickly, there are a lot of things I don't understand. Hearing that he didn't want to starve to death on the battlefield, Su Qingyu felt a little sad. Later, he urged me to eat again, and I hurriedly suppressed my emotions. I'll eat it slowly, I'll kill you. After the meal was finished, Lu Bachan collected the bowls and chopsticks attentively, and quickly carried them to the kitchen. When he came back, he pulled Su Qingyu to sit at the table. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bh Yaoye 11U. Chapter 37. Su Qingmei was stared at by Lu Bachan. She saw that his eyes were hungry and thirsty, like a sponge waiting to absorb energy. Thinking that he might be in danger of death in the future, she also wanted him to have a chance to survive. So she began to explain. This military strategy is divided into 13 chapters. In summary, it mainly talks about 5 contents: strategic operations, combat command, battlefield changes, military geography, and special tactics. The first chapter, beginning of strategy, talks about temple calculations. It says that before sending troops, we must first compare the various conditions of the enemy and us, estimate the possibility of winning or losing the war, and formulate a combat plan first. It mainly talks about making strategic plans before the war. Don't underestimate this military geography chapter. It mainly talks about different combat terrains. Different tactics should be used according to the situation and depth of both sides. The opponent's level, combined with the combat environment to formulate corresponding tactics. For example, this sentence: if the terrain is dangerous, I will occupy it first, and I must occupy the high and sunny place to wait for the enemy. If the enemy occupies it first, I will lead them away and do not follow them. That is to say, in a combat environment with dangerous terrain, if we occupy it before the enemy, we must occupy a high and sunny place to wait for the enemy to attack. If the enemy occupies it before us, we should lead the troops away, do not attack it, and do not do things like hitting a rock with an egg. Su Qing's saliva was dry, and seeing that guy's eyes getting brighter, he suddenly stopped talking. Well, this military strategy is actually more useful for the general. You are a new soldier, and if you get this military strategy, will others listen to your battle plan, or will they formulate the combat direction according to your opinions? After listening to it, Lu Bachan was stunned, and wanted to refute, and opened his mouth. After a while, he said, "That's not what I said. And how do you know that I will always be a rookie in the future? And it's good to have more skills. Isn't it good to have more skills? The battlefield is changing rapidly, and I might need them. Don't you want me to live? In the future, the wife will be honored by the husband. SHH, the wife will be honored by the husband. I heard that. I regret teaching my husband to seek a title. Men will become bad when they have money and power. The ancients would not be wrong." Sukingmei didn't want to say more, but looking at the eager eyes of that guy, she couldn't bear it. After all, they had slept in the same bed for a few days, and she didn't want him to die on the battlefield at such a young age. After thinking about it, she decided to finish telling him the art of war and then tell him something else. "Rookie, what art of war strategy to learn? It's better to learn more about how rookies can survive." That day, the young couple hardly left the house. They talked to each other in the house about how to save their lives on the battlefield. Suqing'an had no practical experience, so she was just talking about it on paper. Fortunately, she was well informed and remembered all the books she had read, so she was able to tell Lu Bachan about it. In the middle, Suqing'an took a nap, and Lu Bachan was alone with the paper, thinking about it. At dinner time, he ran out, and no one knew where he went. He didn't come back until Suqing'an fell asleep at night. The next day, Suqing'an woke up and saw his big head on the pillow, and she was shocked. Lu Bachan was also awakened by Suqing'an's startling. After washing up, he asked Suqing'an for the gold ingot hesitantly. Suqing'an hid the gold ingot, and before it was warm, this guy wanted to take it. Suqing'an glared at him. He also said that he would leave it to his son as an heirloom. I will earn you a lot of gold ingots in the future. I will also save all the good things I got on the battlefield and bring them back to you. I will be useful this time." Originally, it was given to her as a box of silver to give her some confidence, but now he was going to take it away again. Lu Bachan suddenly felt a little sorry for her. Sukingmei didn't ask him what he was going to do with it, and gave him the gold ingot. Seeing him run out with his purse in his pocket, he suddenly wanted to run out and snatch it back. "Gold ingot, such a big ingot, I haven't seen enough." Sukingmei sat in the room, calculating the silver in her hand. 2 taels of silver for the box of silver, plus what Lu Bachan gave her before, minus the money she spent, plus the 10 taels she got from Lu's father, she still had 17 taels of silver in her hand. 17 taels. She originally wanted to break the gold ingot and exchange it for silver notes for Lu Bachan to take away so that he could take it with him. She would keep a few taels for herself. What does it look like for a daughter-in-law to ask her father-in-law for money? There is no problem asking my mother-in-law for money, but she is not my relative, so it is not easy to ask for money. Besides, the rent of the land of Lu Bachan's maternal grandfather will not be paid until the autumn harvest. There are medium-sized and good fields in the 15 mu of land. According to the current per mu yield, the rent collected is only 1 or 2 taels of silver per mu per year. The income of 15 mu of land does not exceed 30 taels of silver per year. It is only 1 or 2 taels of silver per month. In other words, Suqing'an's monthly expenses must be controlled within 1 or 2 taels of silver. If it exceeds, she will have to ask her parents-in-law for money. How can this be done? 1 or 2 taels of silver should be enough for one person. But what if there is a child? There will be social interactions and money to spend. And you can't get sick. If you get sick, you can't even go to the hospital. After calculating this, Suqing'an went crazy. Lu Bachan thought that he had explained everything and could leave with the army in peace. I thought that if I had children in the future, 15 acres of land would be enough for my wife and children. But this was obviously not enough. We can't just focus on saving money, we have to increase revenue. Increasing revenue is the best way. Sooking Mei fell on the bed, thinking about what she could do and what channels she could use to make money. If Lu Bachan spent all the gold ingot, 17 taels would not be enough for him to take away. All her ideas had to be overturned because she had no capital. Crazy. Whoever said that money was treated like dirt would be scolded by Sooking Yu. Sookin Jo thought about several ways to make money that she wanted to do next, and all of them required money to open the way. Thinking of the future when she would look like a little daughter-in-law and go to her father-in-law and stepmother-in-law to ask for money. Judging from their faces, they would give 200 coins for 1 tael, or 10 coins for 200 coins, and she shivered intelligently. I got out of bed, ate something, took care of myself, and then went out. I kept my head down and walked towards South Street. He quietly hid in a shadow and looked into Luji's grocery store. Seeing that there was only one boy busy in the shop, he breathed a sigh of relief. Lu's father hasn't returned from purchasing the goods yet, so Wu will not be in charge of the shop at this point. Just right. Sukingyu quickly ducked into the pastry shop diagonally opposite Luji. The fat female shopkeeper is still there, just in time. There's no one in the store right now, so it's just right. Hello, shopkeeper. Sukingyu greeted the shopkeeper. The shopkeeper turned around, acknowledged the situation for a while, and then said, "Ah, aren't you the girl who brought the twin siblings here that day?" The shopkeeper has a really good memory. He still remembers me. Remember, I have a good memory. After saying that, he looked her over. Has her old appearance changed to a new one? Her clothes were no longer patched, and her hair was combed like a woman. Seeing her sizing him up, Sukingyu pursed her lips diagonally across the street and said, "The guy opposite is the eldest son of his family. Do you know him? He just got married." The fat shopkeeper was stunned for a moment, then realized quickly and slapped his thigh, "Is this boy Bocheng marrying you? She is said to be a poor girl from the countryside, I don't think you have the same temperament." Sukingyu smiled, it didn't look like her temperament would change. "Madam, she has a tender heart." Author, Bhaya 11U. Chapter 38. Sukingneo exchanged greetings with her, then turned around and looked around in the shop. The varieties of cakes are still the ones she came to see that day, and they taste sweet and fragrant. I didn't refuse the tasting food handed to me by the fat shopkeeper. While I was eating, I stared at the cakes and talked to the fat shopkeeper. As early as 2 days ago, Lu Bachan had told her about this store when he took her to visit the town. It is said that the fat shopkeeper is just the shopkeeper of this Fengting town shop, not the owner. This shop has a semicolon in Pingchuan County and Guangning Prefecture. It's good to have a semicolon, but it's easier to talk with a semicolon. After looking around, Sukingyu had an idea. These days pastries are affected by some technologies, and the categories are not rich enough. Most of them are steamed, boiled and fried, and less often roasted. Fermentation techniques are not often used in cakes. The pastries in the store are of the northern style, focusing on the original taste characteristics of the food. Only sugar is added for seasoning and no additional oil is added. For example, the store has pea yellow, kidney bean rolls, mung bean cake, red bean cake, iwawo, donkey rolling, hawthorn cake and so on. Modern Chinese pastries are divided into 13 schools, Beijing, Jiangsu, Guangzhou, Yunnan, Fujian, etc., and they are combined with Western pastries. They are no longer the type of pastry that Sukingyu sees now. Sukingyu turned around and decided to get straight to the point. "Shopkeeper Miao, you know Lu Bachan, the eldest son of Lu Ji across from you, and you also know that he will be drafted soon, right?" "No, damn it." The soldiers who were recruited only the year before last year were recruited again this year? So it's better for us to be servants and not have these worries. You just got married. Once the Lu family boy leaves, what can you do alone? Oh, your mother-in-law is not a relative. Su Qingyu echoed a few words, and then said, the shopkeeper also knows that once he leaves, his future life or death will be uncertain. I want to prepare some money for him, and then put it in his wardrobe. The fat shopkeeper looked at her, somewhat confused about her intentions. I need money. And Lu Bachan probably won't be able to get much money from home. In addition to taking away the money for him, I also want to keep some for myself. The fat shopkeeper nodded repeatedly and took her hand. Yes, yes, you little daughter-in-law must understand in your heart that once Bocheng leaves, don't you want to see Mrs. Wu's face? Only if you have money in your hand, don't panic, take it easy. Su Qingyu nodded, I have 2 ideas that I want to sell to your boss. I want 100 taels of silver. The fat shopkeeper opened his mouth when he heard this. Don't worry, shopkeeper Miao, it's definitely worth the money. I can't say more about these 2 techniques, but they can at least make your pastry shop's brand more prominent in the industry. I can't say it can double your income, but at least you are the only one. This, I can't make the decision on this. Shopkeeper Miao hesitated. You can contact your boss. You also know that Lu Bachan's gathering time is approaching, and he will leave home soon. If you don't want him, I will go to Pingchuan County and ask. No, no, let me think about it, think about it. The fat shopkeeper stopped her, her mind spinning rapidly. Her son and daughter-in-law worked for their employer in Pingchuan County, while she and her family guarded the shop in Fengting. She could still run to Pingchuan County, but she was squatting still. If he has made meritorious service, can he be transferred to Pingchuan County so that his family can be reunited? Soon, her grandson would be born, and she would have to watch over him. After thinking about it, he asked, those 2 techniques of yours? Don't worry, shopkeeper Miao, I know the basics and won't say anything uncertain, and I won't sell it to anyone else. I'll teach you 2 pastry techniques, and I will also teach you the corresponding pastry varieties. If you know everything, I will be your master in the future. By developing more new varieties using these 2 techniques, your shop will naturally prosper, and you, as the shopkeeper, will naturally take a lot of credit, and you will naturally gain a lot of money. The fat shopkeeper was so excited by Su Qingneo's words that he immediately agreed and asked Su Qingneo to come over again at noon tomorrow. Su Qingyu agreed, said goodbye and left. She turned around and went to the vegetable market again. This time, I stayed for a long time, going back and forth to check the varieties sold in the vegetable market, the flow of people, the experience of buyers and sellers, etc. It wasn't until sunset that I turned around and went back. When I returned to the room, I saw Lu Bachan leaning on the bamboo couch, with his long hands and feet spread out and his eyes closed to meditate. Seeing Su Qingyu coming back, he quickly stood up and asked, where have you been? I haven't seen you all day. You haven't seen anyone either. I have something serious to do. As you said, you are just a newlywed, and as a bride, you don't want to leave home. What's a newlywed like? Staying at home every day and watching over her husband? Being always available. Lu Bo suddenly looked over at her cold gaze and flinched. No, that's not the case. I'm going to leave. Why don't you stay with me for a while longer? If in the future, right, you have to. I regret not spending more time with me. Huh, Su Qingyu glanced at him sideways. If there is an emergency in the future, what can I do if I watch more and watch less? Would you live one more day? Or should the living people not live their lives? You don't have the consciousness of a newlywed bride at all. Su Qingyu ignored him and turned around to change clothes. She stayed in the vegetable market for a long time. Her clothes and shoes were dirty, and her body had a bad smell. Lu Bachan followed her gaze and looked at the hem of her clothes, and asked in a loud voice, "Did you go to the vegetable market?" "Yes," Sukingyu responded while changing her clothes in the inner room. "Why are you going?" "Buying ingredients." "Wu asked you to cook again?" "Did you give me money?" Not hearing Sukingyu's response, Lu Bachan straightened his neck and asked, "Is she used for flowers?" "I didn't find her to go to. There was a lot of spending in the past 2 days, and the gold ingots he wanted to leave for her were almost spent by him. I wanted to save it for her, but I didn't expect that he would spend it all." Lu Bachan was a little annoyed. He touched the purse in his arms, thinking about where to get some more money. "I don't know if Lu Shenke will give me money," after crying to him. Lu Bachan held the little money in his purse and said loudly, "If you have no money in the future, you can sell 1 or 2 acres of my grandparents' land to deal with it. The house in the countryside doesn't rent for much money a year. You can sell it when the time comes, and you should get some money. I just renovated it last year. My grandparents used big stones to build the house, so it's solid." Before he could say anything more, Sukingmei came out after changing her clothes and looked at him quietly. "Have you spent all the gold ingots?" Lu Bachan scratched his head and chuckled, "I haven't spent it all, there are still a few taels left. But I can't give it to you yet, you may need it tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. Keep it, if everything goes well, I will have a sum of money tomorrow, then I will give it to you to keep with you. You don't have to ask others for it." "Ah, where did you get the money?" Sukingmei didn't respond. She looked out at the sky. "Let's go to the main room, it's time for dinner. Tell me clearly, where did the money come from? Where did you get the money? Tell me." Lu Bachan chased her out and chattered beside her. "Madam, she has a tender heart." Author, Bhaya 11U. Chapter 39. When he woke up the next day, Lu Bachan didn't rush out, but stayed in the house, insisting on following Sukingyu, wanting to see how she got back a sum of money. Is money so easy to get? If it was so easy to get, why did he only save a dozen taels today? Lu Bachan cursed in his heart, a firewood girl from the countryside knows how to tell lies. He followed Sukingneo around, chattering for a long time, and finally got tired of Sukingneo and drove him away. At noon, Sukingneo went to buy some things and rushed to Jixiang pastry shop. "You came." The fat shopkeeper approached her with sharp eyes, pulled her, and whispered in her ear, "Our boss received the news and came from Pingchuan County early in the morning. It's in the backyard." Sukingyu nodded. Went to the backyard of the shop. I saw a young man in his mid-20s sitting leisurely in front of the tea table drinking tea. The clothes are well dressed, the movements are elegant, and the gestures are pleasing to the eye. Young master shopkeeper Miao called and introduced the two of them. "Hello, I'm Sukingyu." As he said this, he reached out to him. The young master was stunned for a moment, and then extended his hand to her. "It's good for you, Su Shayan." The two shook hands. When she stopped her hand and saw the smile on the young master's face and looking at her playfully, Sukingneo realized that her face was a little burning. She still can't change some habits. When talking to customers in modern times, greet them and shake hands as soon as you meet them. What kind of hand do you hold in ancient times? Sukingyu glanced at the fat shopkeeper with some annoyance, and saw the shock on her face. Sukingyu's face became more and more annoyed. The fat shopkeeper must have thought that she was in trouble. A newly married woman shows up in public without saying a word. She is not shy when meeting men. She stares at other people's faces without saying a word and even shakes hands. What hand are you holding? Sukingyu slapped her hand hard. When he looked up, he saw the corner of the young master's mouth raised, even more annoyed. When the young master saw her looking over, he hurriedly lowered his lips and put on a cold expression. "Ms. Su, you said you have two techniques for sale. Seeing him talking about business, Sukingyu also calmed down and sat down opposite him. Nodding, yes. I believe that shopkeeper Miao has told the young master's family about my situation. I need a sum of money to bring to my husband who is about to go to war. I live under the eyes of my father-in-law and stepmother-in-law, and I also want to have some money. The money in the box. After hearing this, Su Shayan nodded. Ms. Su is a sensible person. Su Kinjao smiled. People, you have to have a clear mind and live a clear life, so that you can live smoothly. Absolutely, Su Shayan nodded in approval. The two got down to business. These days, skills are in the hands of individuals and families and will not leak out easily. As a result, many skills have been slowly lost over the years due to various reasons. Of course, there is more than just Jixiang's dim sum shop in Fengting town, but they are all similar except for the appearance and taste. Transportation in this era was inconvenient, so it was not as good as later generations being able to absorb the strengths of various schools from east to west, north and south, and even western pastries. Dr. Su said it costs 100 taels for me, but when I make it, you'll know it's worth it. Look at the pastries you have outside, whether it's cloud cake, mung bean cake, osmanthus cake, pea yellow cake, etc. It's sweet, crispy and soft, and can be eaten by anyone. But if I want to buy a few copies and take them to Pingchuan County or Guangnin Province, or somewhere further away, the road will be bumpy, so I'll leave it alone. So we have branches in Benchuan County and Guangnin Province. Although Su Shayan said what he said, he quite agreed with Sukingyu's words in his heart. If he couldn't take her a long way, he wouldn't be able to let her go for a few days. Su Kinjao chuckled twice. I believe this is a pain point for those who are in the pastry business. Who doesn't want to sell more of their products and make them more widely known? Only the size of the market in one place and one town will mean the size of the business. Su Shayan looked at Sukingyu seriously this time. This woman is obviously a farm girl from the countryside. She has never been to the town a few times. She is dark and thin. Now she is sitting opposite him and analyzing the pain points of the business and the market with him. Su Shayan felt that his previous carelessness might have been somewhat wrong. Sukingyu naturally noticed the change in his expression, glanced at the backyard, and said to the fat shopkeeper, "You have a kitchen and ingredients, right?" The fat shopkeeper glanced at her young boss and nodded repeatedly, "Yes, there are. How can we, the pastry makers, not have a kitchen?" After saying that, he received a signal from the young master's family and hurriedly asked Sukingyu to come over. Sukingyu stood up and said, "Wait a moment, young master. I'll make 2 pastries and show them to you." Mrs. Su, just go. After Su Shayan said that, he suddenly became a little more expectant. This young lady married from the countryside might be able to bring him some surprises. The pastry shops are not improving much now, and the family wants to close a few and collect some funds to do something else. Now that the imperial court is recruiting troops again, the clan members are asking if they can make fire medals on them. There are hundreds of thousands of people in the army, and they need food, drink, clothing, and supplies. Although they can't rob some big families, they can always miss out. If the pastry shop's profits are too thin, branches in several towns may be closed. While Su Shayan was thinking about it, Sukingyu had already been led to the kitchen. The kitchen is large and fully equipped. Sukingyu looked around and quickly took action. An hour later, she came out of the kitchen. Shopkeeper Miao followed her with a plate in his hands, a look of surprise and admiration on his face. My eyes looked at the 2 pastries on the plate, my hands couldn't help but move, and my mouth smashed them a few times. Well, I still want to eat them. It smells so good, I can't stand it anymore. The young master must reward her with another one later. Su Shayan had already drank several pots of tea. When he saw someone coming out, he hurriedly leaned over and looked over. This is a lotus? What a realistic lotus! There were 4 freshly fried lotus cakes on the plate, which were pink and tender in color. The petals exploded layer by layer, revealing the yellow stamens in the middle. Realistic, exquisite, and beautiful. There are more than 10 layers of petals, each layer is as thin as a cicada's wing, and the sweet fragrance makes people move their index fingers. The fat shopkeeper had just put the plate on the table. Seeing the shocked look on the young master's face, he nodded and said, "The young master didn't see that process." When the dough was fried in the oil pan, the petals slowly bloomed in layers. Like a lotus in full bloom, so beautiful. "How did you do this?" Su Shayan looked surprised, and it was so beautiful that he couldn't bear to speak. Su Qinjiao smiled, "The food is made for people to eat. Let me try it, my young master." Su Shayan picked up one. It was not big, not even half the size of his palm. He held it on his fingertips and looked left and right, up and down, at the petals and then at the stamens in the middle, and praised it. "Finally, I was attracted by the sweet smell and couldn't resist putting it in my mouth." The moment he put it in his mouth, there was a squeaking sound and a crispy sound exploded between his lips and tongue. It was crispy on the outside and tender on the inside. It was really an extraordinary feeling. Not bad, really good. The fat shopkeeper couldn't help but lick his lips when he heard the crisp sound, rubbed his fingers on his clothes, and stared at the plate, wanting to eat. Su Shayan ate 2 pills in a row, and then he looked away with some unfinished thoughts and looked at the cakes on the other plate. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bhao 11U. Chapter 40. On another plate was a plate of pastries as white as jade. It doesn't have the oily fragrance of lotus cake, but it has the fragrance of the food itself. The light sweet fragrance is so tangy that you can't help but want to taste it. Su Shayan stared at the plate, looking at the pastry on the plate, and saw that it was as white as jade, cut into pieces, with holes as thin as needles, and a faint fresh fragrance came to his nostrils. Su Shayan took out his handkerchief and wiped it, for fear of staining the white jade flawless cakes. He raised his hand to pick up a piece, and his fingertips dug into the pastry. His eyes widened. This pastry is so puffy. He put it in his mouth and took a bite. It was soft and sweet. Then he tasted it carefully. It was sweet but not greasy, chewy but not sticky, which was just right for his taste. What kind of pastry is this? Seeing that he was satisfied, Su Qingyu smiled and said, "This is a white jade cake. There is also another name called Nianfa cake, which means hair and prosperity every year." White jade cake. Nianfa cake? Well, both names are nice. So the plate just now was lotus cake. Su Qingyu nodded. Su Shayan also ate 2 of the white jade cakes. Seeing the fat shopkeeper next to him staring at the cakes, he asked her to take them down and eat them with the chef. The fat shopkeeper happily took it and left, his fat body walking very fast. Su Shayan tapped his fingers on the table, his mind racing rapidly. Su Qingyu glanced at him and said, Dong Su also saw that the 2 pastries use different techniques. Let's talk about the white jade cake first. It uses a fermentation process to make the dough puffy and make the pastry soft. It is delicious and suitable for the elderly and children. This technique can be used to make a variety of pastries, such as white jade cakes, hair cakes, jujube cakes, chicken cakes, etc. The process of lotus cake is complicated. It uses pastry, several different kinds of dough inside, and finally deep fried. The dough is kneaded with fat. Some pastries in your shop are also made with heavy oil, but none have such good puffing and so many layers. And it can be kneaded into a variety of colors, and the color will not fade during the frying process, and it will not fade when placed. I think you have very few varieties of this kind of pastry. Seeing that he was silent, he added, actually, I would like to sell you another kind of baked snacks. With this baking process, the snacks have good shape, will not go bad after being stored for a long time, and the smell will not fade after being stored for a long time. It can be taken with you. You can make it long way, sweet, salty, or mixed, but you don't have the tools. What tools do you need? Su Shayan asked. Stove, oven, or oven. We can make the stove. Su Kinjao smiled, that's another matter. Today we only talk about the craftsmanship of lotus cake and white jade cake. In addition to lotus cake, there is also a kind of swan cake, which is made like a swan singing with its neck stretched out, with layers of feathers. It is blooming, delicate and beautiful, and tastes better. These two things should help you enter the high-end market. Su Shayan was very interested, leaned forward and asked, how to make swan cake? Su Qingyu smiled lightly, today we only talk about lotus cake and white jade cake. Su Shayan glanced at her, I want lotus cake and white jade cake, and I also want the baking technique and swan cake you mentioned. Then it depends on how much money Dongsu's family can provide. How much silver do you want? It's not about how much I want, it's about how much Dongsu's family can produce. Su Shayan looked at Su Qingyu intently, feeling that the woman in front of him was well versed in negotiation skills. I couldn't help but drum my fingers on the table again, thinking about it. Su Qingyu slowly picked up the tea and drank it. She was not in a hurry, but the other party was more anxious than her. If he really wanted to. Su Shayan felt that the woman in front of him should have more than these things in her belly. After thinking about it, he said, why don't Madame Su buy a stake in Jixiang shop? She can give her opinions on the shop's pastries and teach the master chefs how to make any new products. Receive a bonus every half year. Su Qingyu smiled and shook her head. Dividends are too unsafe, and she can't see the books, and she doesn't know if they are true or false. The other party has the final say on the profit. Once the other party closes the store, changes the name of the store, and changes the person in charge, who will she go to reason with? When will ordinary people be able to compete with the rich and powerful in terms of strength and connections? It's more important to stay safe. It is also good for both parties to leave a good impression and meet each other easily in the future. When it comes to money, in the running in of dividends again and again in the future, if there is any unpleasantness, the gain outweighs the loss. Then he said to the other party, no, I don't have much idea. I just want the little rich to be safe and the wife to be peaceful. Su Shayan glanced at her in surprise. He felt more and more that this woman was not simple. He thought about it and said, then 150 taels. Then teach us the baking process. Su Qingyu shook her head, 200 taels. Also comes with 2 classic baked snacks. Su Shayan smiled and shook his head. This woman from the countryside doesn't know how much 200 taels is. 100 acres of fertile farmland, even in good times, would leave less than 200 taels. Su Qingyu saw that he was smiling but not smiling, so she was not afraid and said, 200 taels, I will also teach you about the swan cake, and I will also give you 2 small tools, a small tool for separating egg whites and protein, and a small tool for stirring eggs and dough. Seeing Su Shayan look over, he said with a smile, having these 2 tools in your kitchen can save the pastry chef a lot of time. Not only can the number of pastries be increased, but also a lot of labor costs can be saved. This woman actually knows how to run a business. Su Shayan tapped his fingers again, frowned, thought for a moment, and nodded, okay. But you promised to only spread the word about our Jixiang family. Su Qingyu also nodded, I promise. Su Shayan looked at her steadily, and felt that this woman was a little hard to see through. She was obviously a poor girl from the countryside, but she seemed to have a lot of things in her heart. He guessed that she should know more than what was in front of her. Make a good relationship, maybe there will be surprises in the future. After thinking it through, the two quickly made an agreement. Seeing Suqing's handwriting was neat, he couldn't help but look at her with a higher opinion. This woman actually knows how to read. And she can also say a few terms of the agreement. Sure enough, she can't be underestimated. Finally, Suqing asked for some small silver bills. Su Shayan had investigated her before, and thought that she wanted small silver bills to be used for her husband who was going to war, so he couldn't help but look at her with a higher opinion. The two agreed that the master chef from Pingchuan County would come tomorrow, and let Suqing came to teach. Suqing agreed, and then turned and left. She didn't expect Su Shayan to be so straightforward and gave 200 taels at once. It was far higher than she expected, which made her a little surprised. Originally, she thought that if the other party could not give so much money, she was ready to teach him how to extract food coloring. The cakes in his shop were of a single color, and plants should be used to extract the color, but the process was simple, and it should be just extracting food, which was time-consuming and labor-intensive. But she didn't expect that the other party would give her 200 taels so readily, which surprised her a little. Suqing Mei put the silver note in her pocket and walked to the street alone. She walked and looked along the way, and ran to see any shops for rent. She looked at several main streets, as well as side streets and more remote areas. Until her feet were as tired as if they were filled with lead, she found a tea house, ordered a pot of tea, ordered a plate of snacks, and sat down to rest. She was thinking about how to distribute the 200 taels of silver. 100 taels was given to Lu Bachan to take away, and she wanted to find a shop to do some small business with the other 100 taels. She, Suqing Mei, has never been a person who lives by looking at other people's faces. It is absolutely impossible for her to ask her parents-in-law for money to spend. She likes the twins very much. Both of them are 6 years old and still illiterate. Xiao Qingyang is very intelligent. She plans to send him to school for a few years. If he has talent, he can pass the imperial examination in the future. Even if he is a scholar, he can avoid the fate of going to the battlefield. If Su Qingsong can't come back, her parents will only have Xiao Qingyang. If Xiao Qingyang also goes to the battlefield to fight for his life in the future, their eldest house can't disappear and watch the descendants of the step-grandmother's line prosper, right? Thinking that Xiao Qingyang may be beheaded in the future, Suqing Mei shuddered. No. Such a sensible and lovely child, he can't have such a fate in the end. He must be sent to school. As for Lu Bachan, well, I'll go to the blacksmith shop to see if there is anything to protect myself. Just thinking about it, I heard someone calling her, "Hey, isn't this King Mei, why are you sitting outside drinking tea alone?" Madam, she has a tender heart. Author, Bha Xiaoye 11U. Chapter 42. The young couple soon arrived at North Street and found Zhang Dachui's blacksmith shop. The two were led to the backyard by a boy, where a man with a naked upper body and strong muscles was facing away from them. The middle-aged man, who was holding the iron block with a pair of pliers in one hand and hammering it with a hammer in the other, raised his head when he heard the sound. His men did not stop, but only glanced at the two of them, and then continued to hammer the iron block. "Why are you here again, kid?" he asked while beating. Lu Bachan hurried over when he heard it. "It's not me who wants to come this time, it's my wife who wants to come." The middle-aged man raised his head and looked at Gong Qingmei. Su Qingmei could tell from the conversation between the two that Lu Bachan was familiar with the shop owner. Yes, he had been in the town for nearly 20 years, and he knew every corner and every person. "What do you want to beat?" Zhang Dachui's men asked without stopping. "I want to make a breastplate." The man paused and looked up at her. Lu Bachan also looked at her in surprise. "Breastplate? For me?" Lu Bachan's mouth corners lifted, grinning. The big hammer couldn't bear to see him like this, so he turned his eyes away. He continued his action. If you want to make his war gear, he has prepared it. If you don't have anything to make, get out quickly. It's hot already, and it's even hotter when you come in. Su Qingmei looked at him. The fire was burning next to him. On Zhang Dachui's strong wheat-colored skin, beads of sweat rolled down, one after another. Suddenly her vision was blocked. Looking closely, Lu Bachan was blocking her way, whispering to her ear, "Where are you looking?" Su Qingmei rolled her eyes at him and looked at the shelves in the backyard. There were all kinds of iron tools and iron lumps. Most of the finished products were farm tools, kitchen utensils, and the like. "Don't you have a dagger or a sword?" Lu Bachan quickly stopped her and explained to her, "You need a government approval to make weapons. If you report it, you can't open your shop." Su Qingmei nodded. It seems that the government has strict control over private blacksmith shops. After thinking about it, since Lu Bachan has already prepared the protective gear, she didn't worry about it, so she said to Zhang Dachui, "Master Zhang, I'll make 2 small things. I don't know if you have paper and pen. I'll draw them to see if you can do it." Zhang Dachui shouted loudly, and the young man who was watching the shop in front ran in again. "Go get paper and pen." "Yes, master." He quickly went into the house and got paper and pen. Su Qingmei drew an egg separator and a mixer on the paper and handed them to Zhang Dachui. Zhang Dachui took it and looked at it, nodded, "It can be made, come and get it in 2 days." Su Qingmei was relieved. After paying the money, she and Lu Bachan left the shop. On the way, she asked him, "Did you use the gold ingot to make a protective outfit?" Lu Bachan nodded. "After listening to the military book you talked about, I thought I must work hard to live longer. In the future, I will practice the contents of the military book myself. My master asked me to find Zhang Dachui. Only then did I know that Zhang Dachui was actually a great man. Although he has a lame leg, his craftsmanship is really superb, and he can even make weapons. My master said he is a man with a story." Limped one leg? When he was sitting, she didn't see it. However, she agreed with what his master said, that man was not simple at first glance, with clear eyes, which ordinary people would not have. Su Qingmei took him to the cloth shop to buy some silk and some wear-resistant thick cloth, and then returned to the Lu family. "Why did you buy these silks? Not only does it cost money, but we will also complain if you wear it. And this thick cloth, so thick, don't you think it is stuffy in the season?" Lu Bachan held a few pieces of cloth and kept complaining about it. Su Qing'an was impatient to listen, so she simply quickened her pace and rushed into the house before him. This woman. She doesn't understand that the husband is the leader. A country girl, uneducated. Lu Bachan gritted his teeth at Su Qing'an's back and decided to give her a good shake of the husband's leader at night. After dinner, Su Qing'an stopped Aunt Zhou, who was about to leave. "Aunt Zhou, I heard you say last time that your mother-in-law and your daughter are doing the work of mending clothes outside, right? I wonder if they will do the work of making ready-made clothes." Since Aunt Zhou was hired by the Lu family to do the work, she has been very grateful, coming early and leaving late. She does the work well, is not talkative, and is diligent. Even the most picky Wu said nothing to her. She herself is very grateful to the Lu family. With this fixed job, she can take home 1 or 2 taels of silver every month, which is a great subsidy. So she not only did the work on the stove at the Lu family, but also did the work of sweeping wine, mending clothes, and washing oars, which saved Wu a lot of effort. Su Qing'an was also relieved and was very grateful to her. Occasionally, she would let her take the leftovers from the kitchen back home. Her mother-in-law and daughter took jobs outside, and they didn't get paid every day. Not only was the work hard, but they didn't get much money. So she cherished the work at the Lu family. She was afraid that the Lu family would be dissatisfied and fire her. The newly married young wife called her and she was feeling uneasy. When she heard Suqing asking her, she responded and nodded repeatedly, "Yes, yes, my daughter and mother-in-law are good at sewing. The stitches are fine and the hands and feet are neat and tidy. All the families who have asked them to do work have praised them." Suqing looked at her cautious expression, smiled and said, "That's good. You also know that Lu Bachan is leaving. I want you to help make a few clothes. The clothes are different from what we usually see. We can do it?" "Madam, we will do it as you tell us. Just call me by my name, it seems more intimate." "Hey. Okay, okay." Aunt Joe breathed a sigh of relief and sighed, "Fortunately, you are married, otherwise who would prepare these for Bo Chang? A motherless child, oh, I hope he survives, otherwise no one in this family will remember their mother and son, if my wife and my eldest son can survive." Suqing listened silently and comforted her a few words. After she calmed down, she handed her some pieces of cloth. He explained to her again. The other party repeatedly said that he would hurry up and do it well, and then left with the cloth in his arms. When they returned to the room, they encountered Lu Bachan asking endless questions. Suqing was annoyed by the questions and yelled at her, "The cloth is not for me, but for you to make clothes." Lu Bachan was stunned for a moment, and suddenly there was an indescribable emotion in his heart. After his mother died, he was always asking Lu Shenke for new clothes. Now someone finally took the initiative to pull cloth and make him clothes. You woman, are making clothes for me. Why are you so secretive about it? Besides, I don't need to use silk to make clothes. You woman, you don't know what to do. Silk is not expensive, isn't it? Wear it. Just make it for you. When you wear it, avoid Wu. I will go to Joe's house and let them change it for you." Although this woman has never been shy and coquettish in front of him, it seems that she still knows that her husband is the wife. "Also make me silk clothes." This woman, really? Lu Bachan felt so beautiful in his heart that he grinned and was about to go out. Suqing stopped him, "Come back. I'll be back as soon as I go." "I'll wear silk clothes soon," Lu Bachan muttered without looking back. "What's wrong with this? You're talking to yourself. Those are for you to wear on the battlefield," Suqing yelled again. "Ah! Do I need to wear silk clothes on the battlefield?" Lu Bachan had already stepped out of the threshold with one foot, but the other was still inside. He twisted his body and looked back at her with a puzzled expression.